Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's Report from the Fields. Donald Trump has few philosophical or any other kind of beliefs, but he does believe in one primary thing: big man government, where he is the big man. As the big man, he wants to do lots of big things, expensive things, like spending money on quasi-military operations, ICE to kick out immigrants, most of whom pay more in taxes than they get in government benefits, federalized National Guard troops to pick up trash, move homeless people from one neighborhood to another, and arrest sandwich tossers in Washington, D.C. And any other big city he decides to troll in late night truth social posts. More new weapons for prolonging Ukraine's losing war. Rebates, quote unquote, on tariffs. The list is endless. Problem is, the federal government has no extra money for his big man projects. They have to borrow it. The current debt level of the federal government is over 37 trillion. When you add in the off-balance sheet obligations for little things like Social Security, Medicare, and the like, the debt balloons to over $103 trillion, almost $300,000 for every warm body living in the country. Lenders are starting to worry about the risk-free part of the risk-free Treasury obligations. They are demanding higher interest rates to lend to poor old Uncle Sam. Big man Trump thinks he can solve that problem by getting the Federal Reserve, which controls the short-term interest rates, to lower them. The chairman of the Fed board, Jerome Powell, ironically a Trump appointee, has been unwilling to lower those rates, citing the persistence of inflation, likely exacerbated by Trump's tariffs. So the big man wants to fire Powell and any other board members who don't fall into line and lower interest rates, and then replace him with his lackeys. Problem is, the courts may rule he doesn't have the authority to fire them, except, of course, for cause. And Fed board member Lisa Cook may have given him cause. Seems that Ms. Cook may have committed mortgage fraud by applying for two mortgages at about the same time, claiming each was her principal residence, thus qualifying for lower interest rates. That's actually a felony, probably enough cause for Trump to fire her. Or, since she refuses to resign, for Fed board chairman Powell to fire her. If he doesn't, does that then give Trump cause to fire him? That would give the big man a majority on the board of the board seats, enough to get his low short-term interest rates. Perhaps the big man should be careful what he wishes for. Yes, the Fed can lower short-term interest rates, but that would be long-term inflationary. That's why the 10-year and 30-year Treasury rates continue to remain high and rising. They're pricing in some extra yield to cover expected inflation. All of this begs the question: why are we letting a bunch of bureaucrats set interest rates, which is actually the price of borrowing money? The price of money is the most important price in a capitalist economic system. Particularly, bureaucrats with no particular talent for figuring out what the cost of money should be. Jerome Powell is a lawyer and investment banker. Lisa Cook is an accomplished academic economist, but in macroeconomics and international economics, not monetary policy. She was also part of the anti-free speech crowd that piled on Harold Ulig, who politely questioned on Twitter the defund the police narrative when he was editor of the Journal of Political Economy. She wanted him fired for that. It's amply clear why Joe Biden or his handlers would appoint her. It's not clear what, if any, qualifications she has for setting price controls for money. But the real question is why we as a country continue to allow a bunch of bureaucrats at the Fed to set the price of money, particularly when they target the price for money, whenever that target envisions 2% inflation, an inflation rate that halves our wealth within our lifetime, not once, but twice. A gold standard and no central bank at all works very well for average people, even as it lessens the ability of Wall Street elites to unjustly enrich themselves. It's high time to end the Fed and replace it with nothing and make big man politics unaffordable. That's this week's report from the fields. I'm Richard Fields. See you again next week.